Let's head down to Coral Gables and talk some recruiting. The Miami Hurricanes, I said it, they lost in a shocking way at home, 23-20 to Georgia Tech. And you know the story. The Canes were up big. They were running the clock out. They weren't up big, but they were up enough to just take a knee and end the game. But that's not what happened. The rest is history. And Miami is no longer undefeated. But today, we're going to dissect the recruiting aspect of this loss and how it might not be as bad as you'd expect. Miami fans, hit subscribe. We are going to get through this together. Recruiting is your lifeblood of the program. Still got to recruit. Hit that subscribe button. We're covering everything. All right, let's bring on Izubee Charles of Cane Sport right now to break this down. Izubee, the Canes were the talk of South Florida. They were undefeated in year 2 under Mario Cristobal and looking for more. It was a big-time game with big-time recruits on hand. 5-star Jeremiah Smith, he was there. He actually told Cane Sport on his way into the stadium. He was asked about his expectations for this game. He said 50-0, just a blowout. That was his prediction. Now, it didn't go that way. It didn't go the way that anyone really expected. So, Izubee, what was the recruit reaction to this game?
Yeah, so after the game, I think myself and every recruit was kind of still in shock of what happened on the field, kind of, picking our jaws up off the ground after, everything that happened. But for the most part, everyone was still kind of pretty positive leaving Hard Rock Stadium after that gut-wrenching loss. And I caught up with Miami commit Cam Pruitt, who I think kind of said it best. He told me, yes, that was a very tough loss, very hard to watch. But Miami is in a much better position now than they were a year ago today. Obviously, last year, coming off that Middle Tennessee loss, and, the things kind of went south from there. But he pretty much told me, hey, it's a bad loss, but we're still progressing. We're still getting better. And I know a lot of people want to say, is Miami back, or, when is Miami come back? I feel like that's kind of, not a good way to look at things. I feel like Miami's working their way to getting back, and Cam Pruitt and a lot of the other recruits kind of had that same outlook leaving Hard Rock Stadium. So yes, it was a very, very tough loss, but recruits are still seeing the positive out of all the bad things that happened on Saturday.
Well, that's good. And, like you said, this is only the first loss of the season. And Miami's had a rough patch these last few years. I think the recruits will give Mario and his staff a chance to turn things around. But did it hurt with a guy like a Jeremiah Smith, who's committed to Ohio State? He was in Hard Rock to see a high-flying performance, and that's not exactly what happened.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this loss kind of completely takes Miami out of the picture for Jeremiah Smith, but I do think this makes that battle a little bit more difficult. Like you mentioned, he had very high expectations going into the matchup, outside of Hard Rock Stadium, saying he wanted to see Miami air the ball out. You gave, a 50-0 prediction, and obviously, like we all know, that didn't exactly happen. And, seeing is believing. And obviously, Jeremiah Smith did not see all that he wanted to see at Hard Rock Stadium on Saturday. And, like I said, I don't think, this completely takes Miami out of the picture for him, but I do think it makes it very, very, very difficult moving forward. But they do have an opportunity, plenty of opportunities for the remainder of the season to kind of, catch his attention again. You have the North Carolina game coming up. You have the Clemson game coming up. You have Florida State game coming up. You have a bunch of very, big games on the schedule still. So a lot of more opportunities for Miami to kind of showcase, what they have and what, Jeremiah Smith might want to see. But that does, that loss is a big, big blow for their recruiting efforts right now for the 5-star Ohio State commit.
Yeah. And now Miami also, they got some big positive news on Sunday. There's probably some Cane fans that after that football game just put their phone away, logged off the internet and went silent. But if you weren't paying attention, yesterday evening on Sunday, Miami got a commitment from 4-star wide receiver Nik Carr out of the state of Georgia. He's a recent decommitment from Georgia. Just about 2 weeks ago, he reopened his recruitment. Now, he was at Auburn last weekend, Miami this weekend, and there was a lot of buzz heading into this weekend. Izubee, take us behind the scenes a little bit. Was Nik Carr's plan all along to commit this weekend, or did something go down that caused him to make a decision?
Yeah, from the beginning, when Nik Carr decommitted from Georgia, I spoke with him, I think, a day or two after, and he pretty much told me straight up, yeah, Miami's the front runner. Miami's the team to beat right now. Mm-hmm. There's been something brewing, over the past 2 weeks since he decommitted from Georgia, and it kind of finally came to fruition, Sunday afternoon, word began circulating that Kai kind of gave a silent commitment behind closed doors to Miami prior to Saturday's contest. And, I spoke with Jeremiah Smith and JoJo Trader Friday night before Saturday's game. And Jeremiah Smith kind of hinted and said, hey, Miami's getting a guy this week. And I can't say who, but, Miami's getting a guy. So, a lot of people behind closed doors kind of knew Nik Carr was coming. And just to see him stick behind his commitment and, stand on his pledge after watching that Georgia Tech loss kind of tells me, hey, this kid really believes in what Mario Cristobal and those guys are doing. So a huge, win on the recruiting show for Miami and kind of a Band-Aid to kind of ease the pain for the fans of what will happen Saturday. So Miami getting Nik Carr on the board, their third wide receiver commit, joining Chance Robinson and JoJo Trader is huge for Miami and huge for Coach Kevin Beard, who I have to give my credits to is killing it on the recruiting show right now.
Yeah, kind of takes the sting out at least a little bit. If you're a recruiting fan, you understand the importance of Nik Carr to this Miami Hurricanes recruiting class. Now, there's also some flip targets on campus that I want to talk about. And I'm talking Jordan Lyle, 4-star running back out of St. Thomas, and Adarius Hayes, a 4-star linebacker from Largo High School. Let's start with Jordan Lyle. Is this a similar situation to Mark Fletcher last year, who Mark Fletcher was at American Heritage, and he was a late flip from Ohio State to Miami at the running back position. This seems awfully similar, Izubee.
Yeah, no, it's there. 2 South Florida running backs that committed to Ohio State early in the process with, Mark Fletcher last year, now Jordan Lyle this year, making that pledge, and I believe April to Ohio State. But Miami's been making that push, ever since running back coach Tim Harris, came to Miami from UCF, and they brought in a couple other guys on that staff. Mm-hmm. Jordan Lyle has been a guy that they really, really, really like. And, he's shown interest in Miami as well. Saturday was his second game day visit this season. He first visited during the Texas A&M matchup. And, I spoke with him after the game, and he said he really, really liked what he saw from the Hurricanes ground attack. He told me kind of, Georgia Tech knew Miami was going to run the ball, and Miami was still able to run the ball, at an efficient rate. So that's something that he really liked. Also, Miami currently has 3 of his teammates committed at St. Thomas Aquinas, and they're making that push as well to try to get that 4th guy, more guys from St. Thomas to University of Miami. So that's, another factor that's playing into this. But there is interest there for sure from Jordan Lyle's side and definitely from Miami's side. And he's telling me he's just trying to take things day by day and see how the season plays out. I asked him if that loss kind of affected how he views Miami. He said, no, not at all. He understands what's happening in Coral Gables. He knows they're trying to build the program to where they want it to get. It's not there just yet, but Jordan Lyle sees the progression, and Miami's, making that push for him. And hopefully they go 2 for 2 for flipping South Florida running backs from Ohio State to Miami.
Yeah, Mark Fletcher said some of the same things when he was being recruited to Miami. So we'll see what Jordan Lyle does. Let's talk a little bit about Adarius Hayes. Now, he has been committed to the Gators for almost a year. I think it'll be a year in like January. So he's been locked in for a while, and he keeps showing up on Miami's campus. And every time he does, I go read the Florida writers, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of concern from the UF side of things, but Hayes seems to be consistently showing up at Miami. What are your sources saying after this last visit?
Yeah, so Miami's linebacker coach Derek Nicholson has been making, a very hard push and has been extremely involved with Adarius Hayes. And, like you mentioned, he keeps popping up at Miami. In the summer, he kind of made a sneaky visit. And then, there wasn't much, that came out of that. He, tweeted after he was 100%, committed to Florida, turning down his commitment. And then, this game day visit again. So a lot of moving pieces behind closed doors. And Adarius isn't, saying much. And obviously that's, not raising concern with Florida. But obviously, if he's still coming around and Miami's still making that push, there's some interest there from both sides. So this is one that's going to be, monitored very, very closely. And I feel like if he makes another kind of pop-up visit to Miami, that's something that kind of should raise some eyebrows and, raise concerns about that. But Miami's not going to let up with this at all. They're going to keep pushing until, pen hits paper on signing day. And they really love Adarius Hayes. They love what type of talent he is, a tall, rangy linebacker that can move, that can fit well into what Miami's trying to build. So a guy that they think can contribute on their team and a guy that they're not going to stop recruiting to the very end. So definitely a situation worth monitoring as, signing day approaches.
So I know there's still work to be done with both of these guys. Neither's a shoe-in to flip to Miami, but who do you feel right now has a better chance to flip in the end?
I would say Darius Hayes, honestly, just obviously because how Miami's approaching us. Obviously, he's still committed to Florida, and, they're trying their hardest to keep him in the program. But there's interest there. You can see it, two kind of low-key visits, not trying to bring too much attention to it. And we've seen in other recruiting battles in the past, when you get guys on campus, when it's kind of those sneaky visits, those are the ones that kind of, hit harder because they're not trying to have their other school find out and things like that. Obviously, Jordan Lyle is a guy that Miami really, really likes. But for now, I have to say Adarius is the one that I would keep my eye on closest.
Okay, and I will. Not all bad this week, Izubee. Miami adds a big-time wide receiver in Nik Carr, the two flip candidates that we just talked about. But I know Miami fans want to get that nasty taste out of their mouth of this recent loss. They're going to go on the road to UNC and try to avenge that this weekend. But when can we expect the next big visit weekend in Miami?
Yeah, so that next big weekend is going to be on October 21st when Dabo Swinney and Clemson rolls into town. Leading up to the season, when the schedule was released, when we were talking to prospects ahead of the year, that was one game a lot of guys had circled on their calendar for obvious reasons. Clemson has kind of been the team to beat in the ACC for the past 5 to 10 years. A lot of guys recruiting battles. Last year we saw Miami flip Nathaniel Joseph from Clemson, and teams recruit similar players. So ties there, and a big program coming into Hard Rock Stadium. So that's going to be that next really, really big weekend. And I fully expect Mario Cristobal and his staff to pack out that recruiting section. And hopefully they have a better result than last time, obviously with Saturday coming. But that Clemson weekend is going to be one that a lot of fans should have circled and expect a lot of big names to be in South Florida.
Yeah, and Saturday's game, it was memorable. Maybe not for the right reasons, but it was memorable. Izubee Charles, thank you for stopping in on the Inside Scoop, dropping some intel on Miami's big visit weekend. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that content, be sure to subscribe to the On3 Recruits channel. We have a new page dedicated only to recruiting. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now.